Well, hello guys. How you doing? This is Richard Duffy, also known as Reverend Rich, and I am truly excited again to come to you and share with you the metaphysical approach to prosperity and wealth. And guys, I am thrilled and I'm excited about this opportunity to share with you my heart, my passion. And as I mentioned to you in the last hangout, I am really following my dream. And I was giving credit to many of other trailblazers who paved the path for myself and many other ministers and teachers. And, I did not personally meet the late Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, but reading her book, It Works If You Work It, and how she approached prosperity was truly an inspiration to me. Also, the late Reverend Dr. Mary Tumpkin, who was one of my mentors. And listen, she was right on it. Uh, had many sessions with Mary Tumpkin. Also, Catherine Pounder, Edwin Gaines. And I have to give a shout out to the late Dr. Reverend Ike. And I mentioned to in the last Google Hangout that because I was raised in a tradition and with the idea that prosperity and wealth and the idea of desiring prosperity and wealth was wrong. You felt as if you wanted to become wealthy or if you had a desire to become rich, that was something that you were not to pursue. And so I remember criticizing Reverend Ike. I remember not wanting to hear anything he had to say. And so when I became a part of the Universal Foundation for Better Living and finding out that he was even mentor and trained under the late Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. And then listening to his tapes and his videos and reading his books, I've said this to my wife many times. I said I probably would have been a millionaire a long time ago if I would have followed the path and the things that he has shared. So again, guys, I'm excited. I am thrilled because again, this is what I have wanted to do. I have a BA degree in metaphysics, so I'm moving toward my doctorate, and so this is what I want to do. I want to teach prosperity and wealth because it's not something that you hear a lot in many religious circles. And when I mean religious circles, I mean if you go to church, if you go to different study groups or whatever, prosperity is not talked about a lot. And I never understood why. But nevertheless, it's been in my heart to share and teach what I know that God has put in my heart. So I'm here to share with you that it's okay. There is nothing wrong with being spiritual and being rich as well. And I said those two things together. Wow, can you believe that? Yes, it is okay to be spiritual and to even meditate and even imagine yourself having lots of money. It is nothing wrong with it. Okay, so we're going to discuss this quite a bit. Matter of fact, I'm putting out a challenge out there for myself because there's something that I want to really build some momentum on these concepts and these truths that I'm going to share with you. So look for a Google Hangout each day for a period of time. I'm gonna get some momentum going because I believe it's time, that we start experiencing that which is rightfully ours. And you're gonna hear me say quite a bit about money. I'm not gonna talk about money from a invisible concept. I'm talking about actually having the money in your hands, in your bank account. And is it okay to have your thinking in that direction. Okay, so as I mentioned to you in the last video, you know, that was one of my biggest struggles. I remember being a part of several different businesses, and I struggled not succeeding because I was making money. But when I was excited about making money, and I had such a passion of making more, then something on the inside of me said, now, you know, if you love money, then the love of God is not in you, and you're not supposed to love the world. And from what I was taught, money is of the world. And every time I would take a step forward into achieving success, and one level of that success was creating substantial income, I would stop, end up quitting the business, and just basically, you know, working on a job and getting paid a certain amount of hour, but I would never pursue wealth. I wouldn't do it. And as I mentioned to you in the previous hangout, in 2006 is when really things began to change for me. Again, that's when I joined the Universal Foundation for Better Living, and I began to study with many of the ministers and some of the my friends there, and things began to really change for me. And I never forget the first time that I met Edwin Gaines. If you ever get a chance to meet her and go to any of her workshops, she was the one that inspired me to share these principles and teach these principles. And I'll never forget going to her workshops and getting her a book. I believe the title of her book is The 4 Spiritual Laws to Prosperity. I believe that's the title of her book. And just sitting there, and I was nudging my wife while we was at the workshop. I said, that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do. I want to teach prosperity. So I remember going into the bookstores and grabbing every Catherine Ponder's book and Charles Fillmore on prosperity. Then I would grab this book and that book, and all, before you know it, I have a library. And I was just studying about success, wealth, and prosperity. And Randy Gage, who is a unity minister. So I would gather many of these books, but it was one book that really, really opened my eyes up. And many of you, if you have not heard of this book, it's called The Dynamic Laws to Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. This book opened my eyes. And also, I mentioned in the last video, John Randolph Price, The Abundance Book. And he has a practice in this book that for 21 straight days, you do a meditation on some affirmations for 21 straight days. And the purpose of the affirmations is it changes your consciousness, changes your view on lack and limitation. And you begin to build this wealth and prosperity consciousness from within. Then all of a sudden, ideas or things begin to change on the inside. Things begin to change on the outside. I never forget when I first got his book, I was in a situation financially that I needed something to happen immediately. And a lady in a bookstore actually gave me this book. And she said, go through his 21-day abundance book. And I did. And in 17 days, I got my breakthrough. And there were finances that were already available to me. I didn't know. It was like instantly in 17 days, I was told to make this phone call. And I made this phone call. And they told me, yeah, this money's been sitting here. This is yours. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. Now, let me tell you why it happened that way. Because prior to having his book, I was worried. I was afraid. I didn't know what we were going to do. I was frustrated. I didn't know what we would do. I was anxious. And by going through those 21 days of those and those 10 meditations each day, matter of fact, you do them every morning and every night, I was able to quiet the mind, be still and know. And I was picking up the wealth consciousness, and the wealth consciousness, as I talked about last video, is that it's what you are awake to. Prosperity consciousness and wealth consciousness is that which you are awake to. So it was awaking up that which was already there. The money was already there. It wasn't hiding from me, but I had to be awake to the idea and be open where my higher self spirit could say, there it is there. And I was like, oh my goodness. So for those, that experience and many other experiences that I have had, it has been my dream to teach prosperity. And again, I give homage and praise to many of the ones who laid the foundation, and for others to come behind them and carry on that it is okay to be prosperous. Okay? All right. So I'm going to start with Catherine Ponder's book. And I love the title of the first chapter. The first chapter 1, it says, the shocking truth about prosperity, that it is shockingly right. I want you to hear that. The shocking truth about prosperity, that it is shockingly right. Now, why was she titled that? Because again, if you would study the history of what we've heard about the prosperity gospel, it is not something that's very popular. I do not know why, if anybody who desired to have a disciplined life, who wanted to be a Christian, that having wealth or being wealthy or rich seems to be not the Christian path. In other words, I've seen many people who are Christians and who are very wealthy get criticized, even by their own peers and even by people in the media. Because and they will ask them questions, do you think that is what Jesus taught? Did he teach, materiality and wealth and success and riches and all that kind of stuff? In other words, people believe that if you follow the teachings of Jesus, you should live the kind of life that people don't see as much. They don't want to hear about you. Very comfortable, very relaxed life. If you driving around in a luxurious car, or if you got a 5, 10, or 15,000 square foot home, then you are not showing forth Christian virtues. Okay? I remember back in growing up in my Pentecostal holiness tradition, listen, it was more important that you get up and testify about your struggle, because you could stand up and say, guys, listen, I want to give thanks to God for carrying me through the week. It's been rough, and they would talk about how the devil been on my back and almost got my lights turned off. I didn't know how my children are going to be fed, but thanks be to God, it worked out. Somebody brought me some bread, and that was more virtuous than somebody who, if you saw, was very wealthy and very rich. People would snub their nose at him, and I never understood that. Okay, so that's why she titled it "The Shocking Truth About Prosperity," that it is shockingly right. Why is it shockingly right? Because of who we are. Guys, we are infinite beings in a body, created in the image and likeness of Spirit, of God. And it is right because of who we are. It has nothing to do with what I've done. It is right because of who I am. I am the offspring of Spirit. God, or let me say it this way, I am the offspring of abundance. I come from the source of unlimited wealth. That is my home. Now, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but wealth is supposed to be in my experience, if that's what you desire. Because there was a story, I don't know if you ever studied Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was very wealthy. I don't know if you know that, but she just chose not to use it for herself. But she was very wealthy. Mother Teresa could have taken all the success and wealth that she materialized because of her gift and of her calling, but she chose not to use it for that. Now, what is somebody else who desires to have wealth, who desires to live in a beautiful, wonderful home, lovely neighborhood, wanted to take their children to the best schools, and you can afford it without having debt to pay, down the road, but you can afford to pay your kids through college and many other different things. Are they any better? Are they better than Mother Teresa? No, because it's just her choice. Mother Teresa chose not to use it, not to accumulate upon herself, but she used it for her ministry. She used it for what she wanted to use it for. Okay, so it is shockingly right, guys, because by divine right, I am the offspring of unlimited good. And by divine right, if I desire to be wealthy, then all I need to do is decree it and allow wealth to come into my experience easily and see myself as wealthy as I desire to be. Now, here's something else I want to share with you, okay? She said that it is shockingly truth about prosperity that is shockingly right. Let me share this with you. I'm going to say this, and I want you to hear what I have to say. Matter of fact, if you out there and if you desire to be wealthy, I am saying to you, is become as wealthy as you can imagine. I'm telling you the truth. Why am I saying that? Because if you listen to the previous video that I did, wealth has to do with consciousness. I'm not talking about just accumulating all material things without any inner growth. I'm talking about that when you develop this wealth consciousness, by default, you're going to have whatever you desire. The question is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with it? Now, I have plenty of things that I want to do. I have a large vision of how I see myself with wealth, how I see myself doing the things that I desire to do in teaching, helping other people, doing wonderful things. How do you see yourself? I don't just see myself just being a person who just accumulates wealth and that's all I want to do. No, wealth starts from the inside. Prosperity is an attitude of mind. It starts in the mind first. And then as you grow into it, you can't help but experience wealth. So what I'm saying to you is this. You should have as much as you want to have, as much as you can imagine to have. Let me share this with you. I post this on Facebook because I wanted people to understand and see this. Did you know? And if you ever doubt that we live in an abundant and prosperous universe, that prosperity and abundance are your divine inheritance. That's why it's shockingly right, because it is your divine heritage. Now listen to this. Red Nose Day, NBC's inaugural event for charity, raised more than $21 million to help lift children and young people out of poverty in the United States. Now, if you were wealthy and you could be one of the ones who add $1 million to help lift children out of young children out of poverty in the United States, and in some, the poorest communities in the world. That's why I'm telling you is to dream big. You know, I shared this on Facebook. I said, who wants to be God's next millionaire? As a matter of fact, I'm finishing up a blog. So when I finish this up, I'm going to get you to read the blog on that. Who wants to be God's next millionaire? Now, I gave some steps in order to become God's next millionaire. I'm going to share with you one of the last steps. I want you to hear this. If you become God's next millionaire, then you can able to teach others become God's next millionaire. And then guess what happens? You become God's next billionaire. Don't sign off. Think about that. If you help people to develop wealth consciousness and they become God's millionaire, then hey, as you're helping people to become God's millionaire, you become the next God's billionaire. Because there's no limit. And the reason why I say to you that you should become as wealthy as you can see, as wealthy as you can see in your mind, because there is no limit to what you can be, do, and have. So why just settle for a little bit? I would listen to a conference call earlier today, and I've said this several times in many of my lessons that I've taught about prosperity years ago, and I wanted you to hear this. Does an apple tree ever get frustrated of having too many apples? What does the apple tree do? If you ever walk through an apple orchard, what do they do? And just stand there. And all the apples there are for the picking. And I've seen people pick apples and they come away with basket full of apples. And what happens the following year? More apples on the branches. Do you think that universal intelligence wanted us to see that for a reason? I said yes. There is abundance everywhere. I've said this many times. If you planted watermelon seed, you don't ever see one watermelon on the vine. It all depends on how long the row is and how many seeds you plant, but you're going to see plenty of watermelon. How many have ever been in the country? Now, I live in the country. And if you ride down 13 going north, there is this great big huge watermelon field, and there are tractor trailers full of watermelon. Can you imagine if they plant all of those seeds and you only get one watermelon? What's the purpose? What is the purpose of planting all those seeds and you only get one watermelon? What's the purpose of abiding in this unlimited abundance and you only take the crumbs? I heard my dear friend Gail McDowell, who is the assistant senior minister in CUT in Chicago. He said it all depends on what you want. You can take a hose and you can plug up to the ocean of abundance, or you can get a big jacket. No, I think he said you can get a bucket and you can take out of that abundance, or you can get a big hose and plug the hose up to the abundance and turn the switch on and let all that abundance just flow into your experience. It's totally based on what you can see. So I'm encouraging you to do this. I want you to think about this. Wealth and riches come to you based on the value that you offer to society. Did you hear me? Now, I want you to understand this. Michael Jordan, in my opinion, was the best basketball player to ever put on tennis shoes. But the reason why he got paid so much is because his value to Chicago. Do you know how much money Michael Jordan was able to put in the pockets of all the people around that city? Hotels, restaurants, people that worked in Chicago, worked at the stadium. Michael Jordan was box ticket. If Michael Jordan was coming to any city and play basketball, the stadium is full. The restaurants are full. The hotels are full. That is why Michael Jordan was paid what he was paid. Now, I'm not going to play basketball, or you're not going to play, maybe you're not going to play basketball right now, but you have something to give. There's a gift inside of you that you are supposed to share, and that gift will make room for your wealth. So wealth has to do with the value. What value, what good value are you going to give to society? Think about that. You know, many people out here complain about the rich and how much money they have. And look at this. I mean, you think about it, NFL, Major League Baseball players. A lot of them make $125 million a year. I'm not mad with. Go ahead and make that money. You know why? Because if you're good at your craft, think about this. You could bat 250, right? Make about a couple million. But start batting 325. Start batting 325, add about 25 home runs and 80 RBIs a year. Let your slugging percentage go up. Guess what else is going to go up? Your money. You know why? Because now you add value to the team. Okay? You add value to the team. Not only do you add value to the team, but you are one of the reasons why the team is winning. Because you're good, right? Then what happens? People around you, the city around you, they started capitalizing off of your greatness. Are you getting what I'm telling you? Everybody has a unique gift. Authors, speakers. I mean, Les Brown is phenomenal. Now, he wasn't phenomenal when he first started. If you ever listen to his story, I mean, he learned and he studied his craft. Now, Les Brown gets paid right now, right? You know why? Because he became an expert in his profession. So that's why I'm telling you, the shocking truth about prosperity, that it is shockingly right because it's your divine heritage. And I'm going to add to that. You should become as wealthy as you can imagine. Don't stop. You get your first million, go get 2. You get your next million, go get 3. I hope you're not getting mad with me. All right. Listen to this. According to the report from Crystal International Real Estate, a total of 5 homes sold for $100 million worldwide. Wouldn't you like to be one of the ones that sold that home? They do it every day. There is no reason for anybody who recognizes the universe as unlimited abundance. And this is what I'm teaching, because I want us to know that prosperity has to do with living in expectation. So those who really understand about prosperity need to understand that there is no limit. So Donald Trump of the world and Oprah Winfrey of the world and Bill Gates of the world has not scratched the surface to what abundance you and I can have. And if we think that by me becoming wealthy, I'm taking for somebody else, guys, that is a limited attitude. That is a limited mindset. You got to get rid of that idea that you are taking away from someone else. It's impossible. We were financed by God before we even put on this form. And everything that we needed and more was already available to us before we came into this physical form. And all we got to do is claim it, call it forth, have faith, believe that it is mine, believe that I can have it. Because that's the struggle. We don't believe that we can have it. I don't know. Is it okay? Would God be mad with me? Guys, I've been through that. I know what it's like to not believe that it's okay. It is okay. Did you hear what I just said? It is okay to be spiritual and wealthy at the same time. It's time out for us to sit around and watch everybody else become wealthy, right? I mean, listen, I love sports. I watch baseball, football, and basketball. But it's time out for sitting around watching them make their money, and I'm just sitting there and I'm paying my direct TV bill, and I'm sitting there watching them do what they were called to do, what they are gifted to do. Many of us will sit around and we love this new show that's come out, Empower. Well, guess what? The cast on Empower, they're making theirs. When you gonna make yours? Hello? They are making theirs. When you gonna make yours? And it's okay that I can have a spiritual mindset, right? And be wealthy at the same time. But when you gonna do yours? You got to work on those old beliefs, those old concepts that block the energy flow of good coming into your life. Okay? Listen to this. Did you know? So if you ever doubt that we live in an abundance and prosperous universe and that prosperity and abundance is your divine heritage, think on this. Verizon spent $4 billion to buy out AOL. If you ever thought that there was lack anywhere, that would change it right there. Verizon spent $4.4 billion to buy out AOL. According to Forbes, boxer Floyd Mayweather career earnings prior to his May 2nd fight with Pacquiao was 420 million. Before he fought Pacquiao, he already earned $420 million. Are you getting? Are you here? Are you listening to me? I want you to know that it is okay. And people who, in my mind, that are devoted believers in this message, and some of the affirmations that we declare and we share, ain't no reason why we should not be rich and we should not experience the wealth. And I'm not talking bad about anybody else. Go get yours, because you ought to be rich. You have no right to be poor. To live and not be rich is a misfortune, and it's a double misfortune because you could have been rich just as well as being poor. Catherine Ponder says in her book that to be rich means to have an abundance of good or living a fuller and more satisfying life. Guys, listen, I know that growing up, my mom did great. And we wasn't rich, but we ate and we had things. But I just can't imagine what it'd been like if she was wealthy. She wouldn't have to struggle and work 2 jobs just to put food on the table and keep lights on. My mom worked, if she had to, she would have worked 3 when we were kids. But she was raised in the same tradition that I was raised in. It was better to be saved and waiting to go to heaven. It was better to struggle. So when you struggle down here on earth, You got your mansion waiting for you, walking streets of gold. So people are willing to struggle here on earth because they think their wealth is somewhere in the hereafter. And I'm not here talking about the hereafter or anything of that nature, but that's why people that especially are spiritual are afraid to get wealth, have wealth, because they think, well, if I don't get it, I'll get it later. And if you have looked around, there are more people struggling from a financial standpoint, that this message need to be taught in our churches. And I'm gonna tell you what Catherine Ponder said, and I totally agree with this. She said that several decades ago, businessmen predicted that religious leaders of the future would be forced to give more attention to help their followers solve their economical and personal problems of the present. Religious leaders are going to be forced to look at prosperity and abundance again because of many people's challenges economically. Things change all the time. We're now in the new age. Many factory jobs has gone away. So now businesses are coming forth online now. Do you hear me? So now people has to do things a little different than what they did 50 years ago and 60 years ago. It doesn't mean that we can't do it, but if it's not talked about a lot, and if it's a subject that we are afraid to talk about, then it's clear reason why 95% of people struggle financially, because we're afraid to discuss it. We're afraid to share it because it's this idea that I am not in God's will. Oh, I heard that so many times, that I'm not in the will of God if I teach about wealth and prosperity. Let me tell you what Charles Fillmore said, and I'm going to close on this. Charles Fillmore said that poverty is a sin. Did you ever hear that? Now, why do you think he said poverty is a sin? Because prosperity and abundance is your divine heritage. And just like it's a sin for me to plant apple seeds and apples don't come on the branches, then that tree, I need to get rid of that tree. If it's not bringing forth the fruit that it's supposed to based on the seeds that I plant, it's wasting soil. It's a sin because you have the divine right to be wealthy, success, and happy. You have the divine right to be happy. You have a divine right to be healthy. You have a divine right to be successful. You have a divine right to be rich. Man, my camera's falling on me. Sorry about that. Uh-oh. All right. You have the divine right, guys. That's why the shocking truth about prosperity, it is shockingly right, because it is your right to be rich. I love it. I love it. All right, tune in tomorrow. I'm not as sure exact time, but I'll send out the email and I'll send out the blast of when I'm going to do video. But listen, go to my blog, www.youtoocanberich.com. www.youtoocanberich.com. And when you watch this video, if you're not watching it live, you can watch it later because it's going to be on my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel is called How to Be Prosperous in Life. Matter of fact, Catherine Ponder talked about that when people understand that it's their divine right to be wealthy, everything else around them starts changing. Relationships start getting better. Their health starts getting better. I wonder why. No longer stressing over bills. No longer stressing over this. I wonder why. Things begin to go into balance, guys. Did you hear it? Did you hear it? Things start going to balance. So we have this idea that wealth is way over here. It's out of balance. You need to have the wealth, you need to have the health, and you need to have good relationships. Bring it all together. And that you be living the abundant life right here, right now. All right. This is Reverend Rich coming to you with the metaphysical approach to prosperity. All right. Tune in tomorrow. And I hope what I shared with you was an eye opener for you. I hope and I pray that your mind has been changed about the idea that you can be wealthy if you are a spiritual person. Peace and blessings.